Hey guys, this is Torch here. I'm here with Travis Gafford, who also does State of the League and some other news stuff. But would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Travis Gafford. I am I guess League of Legends esports personality and content creator, and I do cool stuff and I interview awesome people.
The reason that I'm trying to talk to you right now is that we see a ton of content coming out here from the League of Legends World Finals. There's a lot of content producers, a lot of mainstream press here as well. But from the esports side of things, we kind of wanted to talk to you and see what it's like to go about getting that piece of content. Because what the viewers see is only 4 to 5, maybe 10 minutes of video, or sometimes 2 hours in the case of your podcast. But they don't know what goes on behind the scenes, what it really takes to actually get that content out to them. So can you just walk us through a little quick process of what your mentality is, what your goal is when you're trying to create a piece of content, and then we'll go into more details after that?
Yeah, I just ask people to talk to me and that's it. No, I'm just kidding.
What if they say no?
Then I just cry myself to sleep in a corner. No, it is a pretty intense thing. Just because it really depends on the person, right? Like, so Double Lift, for example, I have a really good connection with him. He stayed at my house for far too long, and so I'm able to just sort of leverage the amount of guilt that he has over using me for so long to get all sorts of interviews and content with him. For something like getting a Rioter, that's a lot harder because you have to go through like PR or press and that kind of thing. In terms of just creating like content, like one of the big challenges is having to go and decide like what's the spin that you want to have on this sort of interview. Like in this one, you're talking to me about content creation.
For now.
For now, apparently. But in other, so it's sort of like if I'm going to talk to Double Lift, do I want to talk to him about the event that he's at? Do I want to talk to him about the future of CLG? Do I want to talk to him about what he's been doing on the side, like that kind of thing? And then if it's something where it's not somebody that I personally know, it's a lot of reaching out to that person. You sort of have to throw your credentials down on the table to say like, hey, listen, I'm not just some dude doing this for like a university project. Which, no offense, people do that. That's great. I love it. But it's sometimes it takes a lot of convincing to show that it's worth it. And then the really big thing is it's a lot of, it sort of depends on the topic, right? So what a lot of people don't really realize is there are things people don't want to talk about. So recently there's been even some criticism of different esports people for asking soft questions or that kind of thing, and maybe not asking like the really hard questions. And you have to figure out like, there's this line where it's like, do I want to ask about this rumor or these allegations that are going around, and especially sometimes the people will just like tell you straight out beforehand, like, I don't want to talk about this kind of thing. So, and in terms of determining like what you can and what you can't talk about, it's always kind of like a thing, just like figuring out what people are comfortable with and what they aren't. I'm kind of rambling, but there's so much to talk about.
Am I making you comfortable enough to talk here?
Yeah. And that beer that I had earlier from Riot, that was very nice of them.
Yeah, I didn't say where we are, but we're actually at the Riot headquarters press conference that they're doing, and they gave a lot of really cool knowledge. Stay tuned, you'll probably hear about some of it from this guy and a bunch of other content producers as well. Shifting gears a little bit, you mentioned how you set yourself away from like a university journalist or someone that doesn't have professional experience. How do you feel that you gain that professional experience throughout your career to get to the point that you're at right now? And where would you kind of want to take it forward in the future?
I mean, so I don't mean to say that I like set myself aside from a university person, but it's sort of in terms of like talking about the different audiences that you're going to be able to hit with a certain interview. In terms of like how I've developed this, right? So I have a degree in communication studies from an awesome university, Long Beach State. Go Long Beach State. And that really prepared me for just being able to talk to people. And then just over the past, it's more than a year now that I've been creating content. I've developed different interview skills and that kind of thing. And really, like, so much of my interviewing is based on really what kind of feedback I get from the community. So I like to think of myself as being a tempered interviewer, like tempered by the community, like the angry comments on Reddit or the things that people like. If people tend to think that I have a very casual interview style, not maybe as casual as somebody like Pluto, but still pretty casual compared to like a lot of the more rigid interviewers. So yeah, exactly, like this guy. So it's really just. It's a blend of my personality and also what the community really wants. Because for me, especially when I'm creating content on my own and it's not something that's been contracted out by an organization, my employer is the community, and the people that watch my content. So that's really how that influences how I present myself in interviews and that kind of thing.
I think that's a really good point I'd like to touch on a little bit more is criticism and how you integrate it into what you're kind of doing. So how do you find criticism on the internet that you can then actually take something positive from it and apply to your next job, and how do you kind of weed through the trolls that are out there?
Well, I'd say finding criticism is probably the easiest thing to do when you're creating content. It'll literally be, for me anyway, it'll literally be everywhere that I stick content. And when I say criticism, I do mean trolls, but I also mean, people want to comment on the content, and oftentimes they'll comment on something that the person you interviewed said, and hopefully that's the majority of what they will do. But sometimes it'll be something like, hey, I don't like how you asked this question and not this question, or I don't like how you dressed. It ranges all over the place. But it is a challenge to determine like what is actionable feedback and what is not, right? So if somebody says something like, you look stupid, I can try and dress differently, I can try and change my hair, but ultimately I'm going to still look like I am. But if somebody says something like, I feel like you were too casual in this interview, or, there was a serious question you didn't answer or ask, that's something that I can really act on. So it's really just putting it all into like a giant pot, mixing it up, making sure that you've got the right ingredients in the pot, so like disregarding criticism that isn't actionable, and adding in the stuff that you think is really good, and then mixing that all together to create sort of this like interviewer and this content.
Very nice to see how you're improving with that. I guess another question that brings up is, how does someone that is just getting started out, how do they start to climb up the ladder a little bit when they're not in any sort of public forum where they can get that criticism? Yeah. Is there any way that you think they can go about trying to get a similar effect without being out there in the public sphere?
I mean, I won't bullshit with anyone. Like, it is a lot harder to get into content creation in the League of Legends community than it ever has been before, because you're seeing a lot of people really get into it. I mean, I was lucky enough to sort of start off when no one was really doing it for the most part. There were a couple people, but even those guys like CSN, for example, they were doing StarCraft and other things. So just if you wanted to do something that's more dedicated to League of Legends esports, it's definitely harder than it ever has been. Reddit was a huge help to me, and what I have found is that they are very, very helpful. If you come to them and you say, I want advice on how to create this thing, or can you please give me some criticism on this kind of thing, they will be more than honest with you. Sometimes it can be a little rough because they are so honest, but those guys are really good. I mean, just showing it to friends, if you have friends that are interested and you're like, what do you think of this kind of thing? So it's just, hell, you can even reach out to content creators. I mean, I don't want to put myself out there as like, send me all your content and I'll help you with it or whatever. But, I will say that the majority of content creators and people in the community are very friendly, and very, we're all in this kind of together mentality. And so, sending a Twitter message like, hey, can you check this out? Not everyone will be able to do it. Not everybody has time. Maybe they're reading the Twitter message on the bus and they'll forget about it the time that they go home. But there have definitely been times where people have reached out to me when I've been sitting at home on a, Friday evening and playing video games or whatever in between a match, and I see something like that, and I look at it, and yeah, I can send them some feedback. So I would just say look everywhere for feedback, and try to sort of get that. And as your content gets better, hopefully it'll naturally bubble up to the top, and people will really appreciate it. I mean, we've certainly seen a lot of people pop up recently with great content, so there's a lot of opportunity, even if it is hard.
Excellent. So I guess my final question here before I leave it open to you for shout-outs is, what sort of way do you go about trying to find inspiration for a new topic for a show or for an interview? Because you've got State of the League, which is your flagship, but then you've also got Push the Lane, or not Push the Lane.
Not Push the Lane.
Not Push the Lane.
That show is hosted by Nick Allen, and
which is on the show that I'm trying to think of as whose
Aaron.
league is it anyway?
Yeah, Well, Nick Allen, unfortunately, is on my show, but he's also on that horrible Push the Lane show. No one should check it out at youtube.com/IPLLOL for really good stuff. No one should check out that show.
Anyway, so how do you find inspiration for figuring out a topic like that? Is it just kind of trying a bunch of things and seeing what happens, or do you actually have a little bit of an algorithm for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a mix of both, right? Like, whenever I created State of the League, the idea was, hey, you know, what is this scene lacking? And for me, looking at it from the StarCraft side, I was like, you know, I listen to State of the Game every week, and it really helped me connect with the scene. If I missed a tournament, it really gave me an idea of the different personalities, and really just gave me really good insight into both the game and the scene. And then so I created State of the League because I really wanted that. I felt like the scene needed it. Whose League was more of a personal project. I because of the nature of State of the League, my opinion is not really valued, and nor should it be. Like, that's more about pro players talking about that. But there are certain things that pro players don't want to talk about. Like, maybe they don't care about the production of a certain event, and I do. And so with Whose League Is It Anyway, I wanted to not only allow myself a space to sort of discuss those kind of things, but also kind of create this inside baseball thing and not really worry about how many viewers watch it. I mean, if people do watch it, hey, that's great. But it was sort of like a personal project. I just really wanted to create that. And quite frankly, the scene doesn't have anything like it. I've been surprised at the amount of support that show has gotten, and it really says something about the scene, that people are not only now just invested in like League of Legends itself and the competitive scene, but now also invested in like where the League of Legends esports scene is going, and that's more of the conversation we have there. So really, when I go to content, I mean, it's what do you think the scene is missing? What do you think it could use? Don't just create something that is already there, because people will call you out as a knockoff or whatever, and quite frankly, it'll struggle unless you think you can do it a lot better than whoever is doing it. But really look at what the scene needs, and then also think about like what you think is fun. I mean, when you're creating the content, you know, your passion is going to show through there. So if it's a topic that you're really passionate about, something you're really interested in, that's going to make the content all the better. So those are definitely good things to think about whenever you're trying to determine what you're going to create. And I would encourage people to think about those things and possibly create content if you think you're up to it.
It's great. So it sounds like passion's the true keyword, that if you have it and you're willing to put in a little bit of effort, you're going to be able to get there.
Right, yeah.
So Travis, what is some final shout outs that you can give me about what you're passionate about and what's coming up on the near horizon for you?
Sure. I mean, not too many plans other than more event coverage. You know, there's always conversations that are occurring on things that could and couldn't happen behind the scenes, but I do think people can check out my content at youtube.com/State of the League. Been getting a lot of subscribers there. That's been pretty cool. And I've also been doing contract work for GameSpot, eSports. GameSpot.com/eSports is where a lot of the content is as well. Those guys have been nice enough to fly me around. And you know what? Everybody should check out CSN stuff, because they have a very beautiful, wonderful person working for them right here, right there. Yeah. And apparently they also have somebody that hosts tournaments. I don't know about that. But yeah, they're really cool content creators, and happy to be friends with them, and happy to enjoy the content they put out. So you guys should, if you're watching this on the CSN or like the Razer or whatever YouTube this is going on, you should subscribe to it right now. Also hit the like button, and then put a comment in the description about how handsome the interviewer is. That's my shout outs.
I don't think I can follow that up with anything. This has been Torch with Travis from State of the League. Thanks, guys.